All right, commercial auto part 2. So we went through last week the coverages and the symbols. This one's more of a hodgepodge of different things that we're going to encounter. So we'll just kind of go through them. And again, we'll do the same thing, questions at the end. This one will probably be even shorter than last week. So that should be great. Named driver policy versus the ones that we sell. So it's rare that you'll come up against this, but it's important to know the difference. There are policies out there that say, we will only insure you and cover claims if the person who is driving the car is named on the policy, right? Ours don't apply that way. They're not dependent upon who the driver is. It only really comes into play with the driver if they are specifically excluded. Okay, so a named driver policy versus our policy, which is only going to preclude coverage if someone is specifically named as excluded from coverage. Why might they be excluded? Too many points on their record. Speeding, driving while texting, all those kind of things. What? Accidents. DUIs, suspended licenses for whatever reason. If they're under the age of 18, a lot of the insurance carriers won't see them as having enough experience. Sometimes it's 21. Also, if they're of age, they might be 25 or 30, but we have, a lot of undocumented workers now working in California, and they may have just started driving a year ago. So they may not have enough experience there, so they might exclude coverage that way as well. DOC, this is an important one that I don't think we talk about nearly enough, drive other car coverage. This is going to be for owners of a company who don't have a personal auto that they have their own personal policy with at home, right? So someone is, we just got the example, Tom and his wife own Johnson Plumbing. They have 2 trucks that they drive, but both are company vehicles and covered under their commercial auto policy. They don't have a personal auto policy, so if one of them were to borrow their neighbor's car, get in it, drive, and cause an accident, they don't have any coverage. So this coverage, this drive other car coverage, would basically apply as a personal auto policy, and it would fill this gap. Garaging locations. This is really an important factor when it comes to the rating and the premium for the coverages. We often have employers who will have employees take vehicles home and they get garaged in a different location, or they have multiple locations in Orange County, San Diego, and LA. Well, the rates are going to be higher in more inner city type environments where there might be more theft or where there's higher congestion. And more likelihood to get into accidents, so the rates would be higher. So you might look at a policy and someone says, hey, it's garaged in this zip code, but he's also got an office that's a couple miles down the road, and you go, well, we could save you money if we garage him in Orange County a couple miles down the road because it's on the border. Just important things to note, and to ask the question, hey, do you garage them at different locations? Vehicle size, use, and classification. This is, again, specifically toward how we're doing our submissions and evaluating the vehicles. Most of ours that we list are going to be the private passenger light or small pickup, right? So you think if it's an F-150, F-250, a Silverado, all of those are the gross vehicle weight under 10,000 pounds. That's most of what our guys are going to be driving, right? That's probably going to be 95% of them. Medium is going to be 10,000 to 20,000. F-350 or a large box truck, something like that might fall into it. Past that, there's heavy, but really none of our guys are ever going to come into that. I think I've seen it once, in the time that I've been doing this. And then trailers should be scheduled on the auto policy as well. They should be listed. The premium is usually quite a bit less because the liability is really being charged with the vehicle itself because the vehicle is towing the trailer. And as far as the classification that they are listed on, they're pretty much always listed as service. You'll see some things, are they for commercial use or other, but most of the time we list them as service vehicles. Okay, pollution as it relates to vehicles. If we had a guy who was, let's say they were taking in one of their pickup trucks a huge tank of gas that was sitting in the pickup because they were going to use it for some of their equipment at one of the jobs. It falls off the truck, spills everywhere, and pollutes the ground, right? And there's a pollution claim. There is no coverage for that in the commercial auto policy. However, if they were driving and some reason something hit their tank and gas started to flow from out of their car, or their engine oil leaked and caused pollution, there would be coverage. So if it's directly related from the vehicle, the use of the vehicle, there is pollution coverage, but if it's some ancillary thing, it's not. Now, the caveat to that would be, if one of our guys were to hit an oil tanker, right? The oil tanker is carrying that oil, so if it was our guy with the oil tank, we wouldn't have coverage, but we hit theirs, a liability claim, there's pollution there that's resulting, there would be coverage on the liability side for that. Forms to request, this is pretty simple. Blanket additional insured, blanket waiver of subrogation, primary and non-contributory. This is harder to get, but we're seeing some requirements to get it. Some will offer blankets, some will offer project specific, and some won't offer it at all. So that's a harder one to kind of work with. And that is it. Questions?
I have a question.
Yes.
Do we always want our insureds to have drive other car coverage? Is that something that?
You need to ask the question. So you got to understand if we see that the owners are driving vehicles, we need to ask the question: do you have any personal vehicles that are currently on the do you have any personal autos that you insure under a personal auto policy? If the answer is yes, then they don't need DOC. If the answer is no, this is their primary vehicle and they don't have another policy, then they need DOC.
Okay.
So we got to be asking the question.
So that's why we have that question on the renewal letter now.
Right.
And this is the best way to explain it. Mr. Johnson owns 2 commercial vehicles, doesn't have a personalized vehicle. He goes home and his neighbor says, hey, will you follow me? I gotta drop off the truck, will you take my truck? And he takes this other guy's, his neighbor's truck or car and gets in an accident, right? The neighbor is gonna get sued, okay? And the driver, our guy, is gonna get sued. The neighbor's policy is gonna protect the neighbor, but who protects our Mr. Johnson, right? So that's why he has DOC coverage. It provides a personal liability protection under the commercial auto policy to drive anybody else's coverage, only for liability, not for physical damage. So we're picking up his liability that's caused, he could get brought into because he's driving somebody else's vehicle. Now, if Mr. Johnson has 2 cars, 2 trucks on the policy, and he has a Mercedes with State Farm, and he goes out and drives his next door neighbor's car and gets in an accident, State Farm will pick up that liability, not his business auto policy. So therefore, you don't need to write any DOC coverage if he currently has a personal auto policy.
Well, I think it's important to clarify, personal auto follows you as a driver. It's not attached to your vehicle, it's attached to you as a driver. And then, there was something else I was gonna say too. It's not something we can just add on to all policies because it has to be specifically named for a specific person. It's not just something that we just throw onto a policy.
Right.
It specifically names owners.
I believe it includes
And
everyone living in that household when you add DOC.
Yes, and it's so like it's Mr. Johnson, right? But you just can't add it on, like for employees, they won't do it. They're gonna
Right.
do it for a named insured. And then the other thing, when you talked about named policies versus
Named drivers.
named driver versus a typical business auto policy, the idea is that coverage is permissive use, excuse me, that the company gives to anybody driving the vehicle. But let's assume that some guy steals the vehicle and goes out and kills somebody. Obviously, if they sue our company, we're gonna protect, you know, the company. But that guy that stole the vehicle and, you know, we're not protecting him. But if we give permissive use to somebody, and if we have a company vehicle and he lets his neighbor take it, and the neighbor goes out and kills somebody, and the neighbor gets brought into the case, because we gave him permissive use, we're gonna protect that guy we gave permissive use to, as well as the company.
Can the insurance company run an MVR on someone that wasn't like a named driver, like the neighbor? Say the neighbor gets into an accident and then.
So our business auto policy, I
Uh-huh.
lent him one of my trucks,
Uh-huh.
right?
So say the neighbor gets into an accident, would the insurance company bother doing an MVR to see like if he had points or DUIs?
No,
Doesn't
probably-
matter, just
probably
he's
not.
permissive and that's
No,
fine?
as long as he's permissive.
Okay.
The insurance company asks for drivers, typical drivers and employees, etc. But a lot of times, again, you know, our firms are gonna hire 10 or 15 employees, they're not gonna tell us, those guys are gonna get in accidents, they don't know, and then sometimes, well, we never called the broker and let them know. The obligation really by the company is you let us know the drivers at the beginning of the policy, and then next year we'll do it again. You don't have to notify, you know, the company every time there's a new driver.
Any other questions?
Yeah, so going back to the DOC, owner doesn't have DOC, he drives his neighbor's cars following him, right? Well, no, let's say he does have DOC. So liability covered, it's covered for liability. Does the guy's insurance for his car cover the physical damage? What covers?
Yeah.
So the
Okay.
neighbor, he drives a neighbor's car and he gets in an accident, okay? The neighbor gets sued. If the neighbor has physical damage on his vehicle, then that company's
good,
gonna pay.
okay.
If he doesn't, okay, then there's not gonna be coverage at all, okay, on the physical damage part.
Okay.
The whole idea of DOC is to extend personal liability to the owner of our company that doesn't have a personal auto policy. Now, let's assume the owner goes and rents a car, right?
Right.
The owner of the company. He doesn't have a personal auto policy, he rents a car, and when he rents that car, he goes out and kills somebody, right? So his DOC coverage will extend to that rental car, but only for liability, for nothing else. So that's why when he gets that rental car, he wants to make sure he takes the physical damage portion on the rental car and pays $8 a day, or if he has a certain credit card, you can hit waiver and it picks it up automatically. But if a guy calls you up and says, hey Steve, I'm gonna go rent a car, am I covered? Do you, Mr. Jones, do you have a personal auto policy? No. Okay, you need to make sure, we do have coverage because we have you listed as a DOC, a driver of the car coverage. But the physical damage coverage you must buy from the car rental agency. Okay?
Anything else?
I have a question, with the garaging locations?
Yes.
How strict are they about, our carriers about that? As far as, like, when you said that, you know, you can say, oh, it'd be better if you said that they were garaged here.
Well, it's not that you say, it's, you can advise that you could change them to garage, but we're never gonna say, hey, tell us you garage them in Orange County when you really garage them in LA.
Well, but I'm saying if they have two options, what determines what the carrier would be approved as a better option?
Well, it's, they have filed rates by their zip codes that they put in. So,
Okay. So you can garage cars at different locations?
Uh-huh.
Okay.
so you can have a policy that has 10 different garaging locations and the garaging location per vehicle is different.
So
So I
let's,
think what you're-
let's take an
yeah.
example though. We've got 10 vehicles and the guy lets all his employees take his vehicle home, take their vehicles home.
Okay.
Okay, and we're an Orange County operation. But all 10 of my guys that I give trucks to, they all live in Riverside. So the garaging location, instead of being here in Irvine, we'll put as Riverside, because now you've just reduced the rate by 20%.
Okay.
Now let's say one guy lives in Los Angeles, right? Then we should show Los Angeles, now we've just increased that truck by 20%.
So you could show Orange County in that guy's instance then if you're
No,
located
because
in
that's
Orange
not,
County?
you're not being truthful with the company.
But
You
you could
want to
advise
take
them
the-
to maybe
Right,
do
you
that.
want to tell the insured that the garaging location is, now that may change from year to year, because the guy that lives in Riverside, he fired him and now he's got a guy in Irvine. So the garaging locations don't always stay the same, but it is beneficial, especially for Orange County contractors, because so many of their employees live in Riverside. So if you say to the contractor, look, I see he's at Irvine Plumbing. You've got all your vehicles listed as Irvine as a garaging location. But in reality, every one of them goes back to Riverside, okay? You could show Riverside as the garaging location and reduce that guy's premium. But keep in mind, it works both ways. Because if you show LA or Long Beach, it goes up. And you know, if you go to San Diego, it decreases further.
Does that clarify it, or are you
Yeah,
still
well,
confused?
I guess what I'm still not understanding, so, like with the LA guy though, so if you have the 10 vehicles, 9 of them are in Riverside, you garage them in Riverside.
Right.
You have your LA guy though, and that would be higher, because you have a location in Irvine.
No, you
I
should
see.
put down where the vehicles actually garage.
I think what she's getting confused with is, what Steve is trying to say is, there are times where we didn't ask, so it's on the policy one way, and you're now discovering that it could be Riverside, or should be Riverside and should be LA. That's what he's trying to say. You know what I
But
mean?
the
It's-
standard would be that you put the insured's location, like actual physical,
well,
like warehouse?
we should be asking.
We should be asking the
Okay.
question.
Yeah, I would
Okay.
say as a standard, if you go out, 95% of the brokers, it's Irvine Plumbing. They show the garaging location as Irvine, it gets rated Irvine, etc.
Okay,
Okay? But I'm saying, if you ask the question, because my experience has been, if you take an Orange County plumbing operation, a lot of their employees live in Riverside County, and it will reduce the guy's premium. And that's right. It gives you, it asks garage location for a reason. But in the same token, let's assume we have an LA contractor, and he says, you say, hey, where's the garaging? And you tell the guy, well, it's cheaper in Orange County, you got a guy who lives in Orange County. Do not say to the guy, well, I'm gonna show all your garaging guys from Orange County, they're all gonna live there. And you're just cheating, you know? We ask a question, we tell the truth, we report it to the insurance company truthfully. Simple as that. Now, some guys don't wanna screw around with it because they change employees all the time and, you know, all that kind of stuff. So it's okay if a guy says, hey, look, my location's in Orange County and you just wanna schedule them all in Orange County, that's fine. The insurance company's getting some extra premium.
What if a guy sometimes takes the vehicle home to Riverside?
It's a primary
Sometimes it is.
garaging
It's
location.
primary garaging.
Okay.
okay.
Anything else? Okay, so next week will be our last week in auto, and what we're gonna do is go through several of the carriers' quotes so we can identify who puts what where, just so we know how to kind of get through those clearly. And then we're also gonna go through our proposal, the auto section, so we can have a better understanding of what means what and what are we referencing. Great,
Cool.
thanks guys.
Thank you.
Can you go over MVRs at some point?
Pull up an MVR?
Just go over them? Yeah. Like how to read them?
Yes,
Sometimes they can be
absolutely.
tricky.
I will include that in next week's thing, thank
That'd
you.
be great.
Absolutely, yeah.